You are an expert on transatlantic relationships. How are they now, considering the initial tariff threats that Trump put against Germany and the rest of the world, and considering the fact that Germany wasn't willing to militarily support the U.S. in Syria?
Well, first of all, the transatlantic relations remain one of the cornerstones, one of the main pillars of our relationships, of our foreign politics in Germany and in Europe, by the way. And the current situation, obviously, is very demanding. And I see the role of Germany, and that is what Angela Merkel said, that we are political supporters, that we do not play an active military role. And I think there is good communication and an exchange of information between both the White House and the German Chancellor.
Why is it that Germany isn't willing to play a military role? I mean, surely the German government is against the use of chemical weapons, and launching missiles at some empty chemical weapons factories shouldn't be a difficult sell.
Yeah, there are different factors, but one thing is that you have to keep in mind Germany is taking active part in many out-of-territory military engagements, for example, in Africa and different places in Afghanistan and Kosovo. So we are taking responsibility, and here we see our position currently in a political support, and also we could be the leaders in a political process that is about to start. And as you know, in Luxembourg, as we speak here, the foreign ministers of the European Union member states are meeting and talking about trying to find a way out of the situation. And I think Europe and up front Germany can play a very important role here. And I think this is also taking over responsibility.
Are you worried about a loss of influence in Washington? I mean, France and Macron jumped up immediately, willing to help the U.S. militarily in this fight against chemical weapons. And he'll meet with the president in Washington first next week. Merkel's going to have to wait her turn. Is that a problem?
It's not a problem. First of all, French-German axis is key to the further development and advance of European Union. So there's a lot of exchange. As you mentioned quite rightly, Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, is going to the White House to meet the U.S. President Donald Trump. I think this is they have a lot to talk about, and it is not a fully fledged state visit as with Macron. So this is really work. They're sitting together and trying to figure things out. And I think this shows that in these times where the transatlantic relations are a bit under pressure, where we have a lot of demands and challenges, that they sit together and they talk things, they address things and try to find common solutions.
Guy?
Peter, good morning from London. Does Germany spend enough on defence?
You're talking about the 2% demand. Well, we have self-committed at the Wales NATO summit that we are trying to get there to meet the 2% GDP on defense budget. And as you see, in the past 2 years, we have started the process to quite significantly increase the defense budget. So we are on the right track.
OK, can I draw a line, or do you think that we should draw a line between what is happening militarily and Germany's lack of participation in that process and the possibility of trade frictions escalating? We've certainly seen the president kind of linking a bunch of things in the past. Do you worry that Germany could get caught out by its lack of military presence when it comes to the trade arena?
No. I mean, these are completely two separate things. They belong both to the transatlantic regime, to the transatlantic dialogue, but we have, from the substance, to separate it. And I think both the White House and the German government very well understand this. As was mentioned earlier, Angela Merkel is going at the end of April on the 27th to the White House to meet Donald Trump, and they have on the agenda Syria, Near Middle East, and also the trade conflict, which is, by the way, not a trade war, but a trade conflict. And there are several criteria that we have very concretely to talk about, and I think it's a good start. And as far as I'm informed, when Angela Merkel comes back, and both sides, the Trump administration as well as the German government, they want to start in the trade arena a institutionalized, structured economic dialogue involving trade and other issues of the economy. And I think this is something that expresses that there is a good, professional working relationship. And I think this is what is needed in this regard.
Let me ask you a little bit more about trade. And you obviously focus on the German-U.S. relations, but the U.S. has really been hitting China much harder than Germany, at least as far as the negotiations are concerned. You're also an expert on intellectual property. Does it make sense what Donald Trump is doing from the IP perspective? I mean, has China been playing fair? Do you think they'll be playing fair going forward as far as IP theft is concerned?
China causes not only the United States but also us over here in Germany and Europe some thoughts and problems, and we have to face that. We have not to advise on the White House trade agenda towards China, but what I think could be a good approach, if you see the interest of China is going for technology. China wants to acquire certain technology, robotics, for example. And if they, don't get it in one country, for example, Germany, they move on. And finally, in some of the countries, they acquire a company that, has this technology. So there's the idea, which is still quite fresh, which I think we should give it some thought, is within the G7 regime, we should try to define criteria, write down something that this is something that we would not like because it is a sensitive issue when it comes to national security interests in the G7 club. And I think this is something where the G7 member state could address this issue. And this is also something that would, be very well recognized over in China.
Maybe some common ground then where Angela Merkel and Donald Trump could work together. Both have the same interests in China. They want to be able to get businesses in there. They don't want to give up controlling stakes or give up their intellectual property.
Exactly. There's something, as you put it quite right, I think, common ground. And when it comes to a little bit a step back, when it comes to terrorism, steel, and so from a European standpoint, and especially here in this country, in Germany, we watch this very closely. We have an interest that there's some solution to this problem because we are concerned about, circumvention of trade that cheap Chinese steel is entering into our market, and we're talking about job losses in Germany if the prices go down.
All right, Peter, thanks so much. Great to have you in here today. Peter Beyer, Germany's coordinator for transatlantic cooperation.